I have actually quite a few things that I want to try and get done with you today, but I also don't want to keep you over our time. So I think we're going to get started. Let me see if I can get my little thing. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, what have I done? Ah, here we have a little discussion. Hi, Chu.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
Hopefully you can all see my screen, and you can see I have 3 questions on there. So I want you to take a look at those 3 questions. These are based on the reading I asked you to do for today. And let me see here. I'm going to ask Amenuveve and Doris to, in the chat room, write down an answer for number 1. How about Anne and Mariam and Chu are going to write down what they think the answers are to question number 2. And Christelle, Minjing, Mayamin, and Zara can write down question number 3, because that's the hardest one. And I like to give you guys hard things. So let me see if I can find my little chat room. You know, I have to tell you something. I do a course for healthcare professionals in Africa, English for healthcare professionals. And one of the things that's very interesting is the whole situation of doctor-patient relationships. Very interesting. So take a couple minutes. You guys, oops, am I blocking the thing? Do you see the little chat room on my screen too?
No.
Good. Okay. So what I'd like you to do is take a minute and, hi, Mayamin, how are you? I think you're muted. Oh, I can't hear you, but it's okay. Oh yeah, I can hear you very quietly. It's great to see you.
Thank you.
So take a minute. If you need to, pull up your book, take a look in there. And don't worry, they don't have to be complete sentences. Just give me some ideas. Obviously, the first one is about definitions. The second one is about problems. And the third one is about solutions. So see what you can do. Menuveve, look carefully at the reading. Cyberchondria is a little bit more specific than just that.
Is what?
It's more specific. It's not just about being addicted to the internet. Although if you want to know about being addicted to the internet, I believe, Zara, did you write about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Zara is our expert about internet addiction because she wrote about it all.
It's about smartphone, not about internet.
What?
It's about addicted to the smartphones.
Oh, about the smartphones, not just the internet, the smartphones. Okay, yeah. So take a look at Menuveve. It's a little more specific. It's not just about being addicted to the internet and online activities. And for extra credit, anybody who can tell me what is the word that cyberchondria actually comes from, you can post that too. Woo! I'm going to be quiet and let you look at stuff. I'm going to mute myself because, you know, I love to talk to you when you're trying to work. And good morning, Bradley.
Morning.
Very nice, Doris. I like that. I like it. Nice. And I know Christelle is shaking her head because she probably deals with this a lot. Patients who come in thinking they know more than you do.
My mother-in-law is cyber country. You tell her, I hurt my finger. Oh, let me see.
That's right. Let me diagnose that for you real quick on WebMD. Oh, Doris, I accidentally muted you. Can you unmute? I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was actually trying to mute myself. I'll be quiet again.
Is it cyberchondria?
The pronunciation is cyberchondria.
So can I describe someone with this word? I mean, is it adjective? No.
That's a good question. It's actually a noun that describes the condition. Cyberchondria. So you talk about it as a noun, as sort of for many doctors, patients who have cyberchondria can be frustrating.
Okay.
And you add a C at the end of it if you want to make it the name of the person, cyberchondriac.
Oh.
Christelle, I like your solution there from the text. Very nice. Okay. Hugh, that's the concerns, right?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
That's excellent. Excellent, excellent. Where's Hugh? Oh, there you are. Good, I got you. Hi.
Hey.
That's great. Remember, if you finished, if you can find what's the word that cyberchondria is based on. Thank you, Christelle. Yes. I have been described as being a hypochondriac at times. Nice, Doris. Thank you, Mayameen. Nice, Minjing. So part of it is about educating patients, right? Thank you. Nate, hello, Nathan.
Hi, teacher.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Zara, I like that. And the way you use cyberchondriac is perfect. That's exactly, you're going to advise the cyberchondriac. Nice. And there are certainly risks. Let me see here. Let me find. So I think we can all agree that cyberchondria is a condition where people, and I'm reading from Doris's post, condition where people that neither are doctors nor specialists try to diagnose themselves by reviewing symptoms and more information from the internet. One of the problems that Chiu was talking about is that patients can challenge doctors more aggressively because they may say, look, you spent all those years at medical school, but I just spent 15 minutes on the internet. So we're kind of equal. No. And the other good point that Chiu makes, they don't always use credible websites because you can get some pretty crazy things on the internet. Now, Bradley, I think that that is good information that you've put up there, but I'm not sure. I mean, and I think it's in general, that's good information. But in dealing with cyberchondria and the sort of the topic of this essay, which is on page 169, I mean, yeah, I think it is, that's always good advice, but I think that's more general than what we're looking at. You see what I mean?
Okay.
One thing too that I've noticed is that, or my takeaway from the reading is that doctors are concerned that patients might scare themselves when they read about symptoms. And I have been guilty of this. If I have a little pain somewhere and I type in this Google search, you know, what can this pain be? There's a long list of scary things it could be. When in reality, it's probably I just moved too quickly and pulled a muscle, or just strained a muscle. And I see. Oh, nice, Mariam. Mayameen, we've got the solutions are to read from reliable sources that are specialized. And Mariam is saying the patients don't have the knowledge. They just find the information, and based on that information, they hurt themselves, not cure themselves, because it's limited. Nice, very nice. Yep. And I think that's connected to that earlier thing that the patients can actually do more harm than good if they're only relying on internet and they don't rely on a doctor, because they may not realize all of the implications of what's going on. Oh, and Anne has got something here. As patients do doctor work, the relationships changes. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden, patients will challenge doctors and will question doctors' diagnosis. And then they can scare themselves. Excellent. Yeah. Yeah. And it is interesting. It's a big issue. And actually, one of the doctors who's in this article is a friend of mine, Dr. Barrios from Venezuela. And it's an interesting phenomenon because all of the whole dynamic shifts for doctors when instead of spending time just focused on what the actual issues are, they have to convince their patients not to listen to all of this. Christelle, I'm going to ask you, what do you think about this issue of cyberchondria? I don't know if that's something that you found in Congo or not. I think you're muted.
So I was saying that cyberchondria is not really common in my country because it's quite the opposite. most of people are hypochondriac. They don't believe that the disease is serious. They don't respect, for example, diet. If they have a chronic diseases, they think that the disease is not a big deal, something that can be solved easily. So I didn't really experience a lot of hypochondriac because I work a lot in impoverished areas where people don't have internet, not a lot of information. So they tend to minimize their symptoms, their disease.
Oh, that's a great perspective. And so in some cases, in to a degree, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, it seems like part of this, it's very context specific. Here in the United States, with a lot of internet access and such a reliance on the internet, is probably a lot more prevalent than, for example, the populations that you work with. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Well, one of the reasons why I wanted you guys to read about this is partly, I think it is a phenomenon, and even as more and more places have access to the internet, all sorts of issues like this can occur. And if you think about it, it can also occur not just for medical issues, but for a lot of other issues. For example, about climate change. And some people would argue a lot about political things, where people start to devalue expertise and think that everyone has, since we have all this access to information, we can just forego the experts, which can be unfortunate. All right, let me see here. Let me see if I can do something. Oh, you know what? Thank you all for that discussion, but I think it's time to look at some grammar. Warms my heart. So we're going to take a look at the grammar in Unit 15. And these, I think, are actually really interesting. Do you guys see, let me just confirm, can you see the Grammar and Beyond little purple thing that I've got on my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I don't want to just go off on it without anyone being able to see it. All right. So we're going to look, and guys, I know we're lucky this is online because no one can throw anything at me when I tell you the names of these, because they're more grammar terms. So you can throw things, but it's just going to hit your screen. It's not going to hit me. Sorry. So they're called adverb clauses and infinitives of purpose and reduced adverb clauses. Don't worry about those names. What I want you to do is, as we're talking about it, take a look at the actual structures, and you'll notice that there are things that you see when you read, and hopefully you're going to be using them when you are writing, more so even after today. So an adverb clause of purpose and an infinitive of purpose, they are a way that we can express the purpose or reason for some action or idea. And it's usually going to come after the main clause, and we often use it when we talk about problems and solutions to explain the reasons for a specific solution that we're suggesting. Some clinics have computer stations so that patients can go online in the waiting room. So we're explaining why. Why is this useful? And notice the structure there is so that. And then the so that is followed by a subject and a verb. But we're going to get into that just now. She researched the disease on the internet in order to learn more about it. Another structure that I want you guys to put into your repertoire, to use a French word, repertoire. So an adverb clause of purpose is a dependent clause. That means it doesn't stand by itself. It would be a fragment if you tried to use it without another part of the sentence. And it answers the question, why? Why is John making us study all this grammar? In order to become better writers. Okay, so doctors should educate their patients about how to evaluate medical information on the internet so that the process of diagnosing becomes collaborative rather than adversarial. So that's the reason why doctors should do that.
Can I
So
say
that,
something?
yes?
Does so that means so? I mean, when I use just so, are they have the same meaning?
That's a great question. And in most cases, yes. But I'll actually show you a little bit about that. But that's a really good question. Because they are very similar. And I'll show you something in just a minute. So that is the most common way. He cut down on the fatty food. Let me think about this. So he could lose weight. Yeah, you can do that. So that he could lose weight, or so he could lose weight. And, oh, there it is. Sometimes it is reduced just to the word so. He cut down on the fatty food so he could lose some weight. Now, you may be shaking your head, John, and say, why in English are you giving me these different options? Why can't I just have one option? Well, part of the reason for that is many words in English have multiple meanings. So if you think about the word so can have more than one meaning. Like, I am so happy to see you all and talk about grammar. So sometimes the way your sentence is written, it can be confusing to use the word just by itself. And that's part of what you need to do. When you have all of this knowledge, you'll be able to make your writing so clear that everyone knows exactly what you mean, and they don't think about your writing, they just think about your ideas. The adverb clause of purpose usually will come after the main clause. In this example, the clinic provided training for using online medical reference information so that patients would feel less anxious. So the reason there is we want people's anxiety to go down. However, we can also reverse them. So that patients would feel less anxious, the doctors provided training, blah, 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 blah. Now notice here you would use a comma after the so clause, and it's not quite as common, but you will see it and you can use it that way.
But
Now,
if I only have so, can I use it in the second structure? I think no.
yeah, I don't think you should. So patients would feel less anxious. No, that's a good point. So for that, the shorter version of so, it is almost always it's best to use it when it's at the end of the idea. It's after the action and it's designing the clause. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent point. Okay, now when the subject of both the main clause and then the purpose is the same, you can use a couple of different structures, in order and so as, and then just the infinitive verb. You don't have to have a new subject in that second part of the sentence. So we have in order and so as, and let me give you some examples. Doctors place brochures on medical conditions in their waiting rooms in order to provide patients with valuable information. So notice that the doctors are placing the brochures, but the doctors are also providing valuable information to their patients. So you can use in order to, you can use so as to, or you can, in some cases, you can just get rid of the in order and just say to provide patients. Again, that's something where you have to be careful. You don't want to make it a confusing sentence. And here's one: doctors should discuss treatment options with patients so as to address any concerns. And you could conceivably just say doctors should discuss treatment options with patients to address any concerns. Yeah, you could still do that too. But so as to is a really nice structure that I hope you will all use. Okay, you can also use them in a negative sense. So the purpose is actually a negative statement. And typically you'll put not before the infinitive, which is that to, the to in the verb. So a patient might not say anything about what he or she reads on the internet in order not to make Christelle angry. Not to make the doctor angry. So as not to, patients should avoid the use of unqualified medical websites so as not to make false assumptions. So notice you can use a negative structure, but you want to make sure you follow that word order. Yeah. One of the things that I mentioned, you know, sometimes you can reduce these things, but when you have an infinitive form of the verb as part of your main clause, you definitely want to include the full form, otherwise it becomes confusing. Some patients write a list of questions to ask to use time efficiently. That's confusing. That's, even though you could make an argument it's grammatically okay, it doesn't really work. This is where it's really important for you as a writer to add that extra couple of words in order to make it very clear. And there will be no ambiguity. So some patients write a list of questions to ask, and then you show much more clearly, now I'm talking about the purpose, in order to use time efficiently. Now, these are called adverb clauses because they're modifying your whole main idea, and they have a subject and a verb, or they have that verb going into it. We can also make adverb phrases, and then that's going to modify the subject of the main clause. Let's take a look at some of these so we can see them. Sometimes patients become frightened when they read symptoms online. So that's that when they read symptoms online is a more general adverb clause. It's just describing when something happens. But you can also do this. Sometimes patients become frightened when reading symptoms online. So notice that we no longer say they read, instead we say when reading. And it has the same meaning, but it's something in addition that you can use in your writing. And you will definitely see this in your reading.
Can I use during instead of when?
Pardon?
Can I use during? Because this doesn't make sense for me.
Okay, so sometimes patients become frightened during, well, the only thing is during is a different type of a word. It's a preposition. So it would be during, and then you need a noun. You can't have a verb after that. So you can say
but reading can be noun, gerund.
Yeah, but in this case, you're right. It looks like it could be a noun, but this is not a noun. This is what we call the reduced clause, and that's where it gets a little tricky. So it's not the same thing as if I say to you, reading is fun. That reading is acting just like a noun. But here, the reading symptoms online is really not a noun. Even though you could take that whole thing and say reading symptoms online can be stressful. But when you have this, if you wanted to use the word during, you would say sometimes patients become frightened during, what's a noun that we could use there? During
Reading
internet activities or something like that. But you can't use this reduced clause. And I'm really glad you brought that up, Zara, because it's a different form of that, even though it's the same. I mean, it's the same word, but it's a different use. So the answer to your question is no, you can't use during here. Typically, the most common time you're going to use it are with the words when, while, before, and after. And also, those reduced clauses, you have to have the same subject for each action. So, here, let me show you. So Joanna tried various home remedies before she saw the doctor. So we have Joanna tried something, and then again, she is Joanna. Joanna saw the doctor. It's the same subject, and then we're using that adverb before. So you can say, Joanna tried various home remedies before seeing the doctor. And because we're not changing the subject, it's still the same subject. We're still saying Joanna's seeing the doctor. You can do that. And it's very common. Now, if the clause has the present progressive or the past progressive, so it's like, I am talking about grammar, well, let me take a look at it. Okay, when I am dieting, okay, that's what it is. When I am dieting, I never eat sugar or red meat. I probably shouldn't do that anytime, but that's another story. When dieting, I never eat sugar or red meat. So in that case, you can just get rid of the subject and the form of the verb to be. Okay? While Tran was searching the internet, he found positive reviews about his doctor. Because the subject remains the same, you can say, while searching the internet, Tran found positive reviews about his doctor. Okay? And if it's the simple present or the simple past that you want to express, you just get rid of the subject and change it to the ing. Before they see a doctor, many patients use the internet. Before seeing a doctor for an appointment, comma, many people use the internet. So it's a simple present, that's what you do. In the past, before they saw a doctor, people would ask for advice from family and friends. Notice we're talking about the past. We can still say, in the past, before seeing a doctor, people would ask for advice. So the other elements of the sentence are telling the reader that this is in the past. Oh, forgive me, this one gets a little more complicated. If you have the verb in the present perfect or past perfect, you get rid of the subject and you change have or had, as in I have visited Miami. You're going to change it to having. After you have read multiple articles online, you'll have a better understanding of your doctor's diagnosis. After having read multiple articles online, you'll have a better understanding of your doctor's diagnosis. So notice this gets a little more complicated because you're now talking about, you're using these structures to really order what's happened in terms of time and their relationship between each other. And then even if it's in the past, after he had read multiple articles, he had a better understanding, you can still do the same thing. After having read multiple articles, he had a better understanding. So both of those, even though you have the same structure, one talks about the present because of the main verb, and one talks about the past because of the main verb. Wow. Okay?
Yeah.
And now it's your turn. Yes. Okay, these are in your book, so you can do them either in the book or you can take out a piece of paper. Hopefully you can see this good. I know it might be tight if you're on a phone. This is a little story about somebody who went to the doctor. A few months back, I was plagued with headaches and fatigue. Before I went to the doctor, I decided to read up on possible diagnoses. That's okay, but I'm all these things where there's a space, I've given you the one option is in parentheses, but I want you to change that into this reduced form that we talked about. So before going to the doctor, I decided to read up on possible diagnoses. Now there's 2, 3, 4, and 5. I'm going to ask you guys to figure out what you can do there. Can you see it okay? If not, it's in your book on page 175. just an added note, typically at the end of this little section that you're writing, you would put a comma before the main part of the clause, if it's at the beginning. And if you feel confident, you can post any one of those number 2, 3, 4, or 5 in the chat room if you want to see what you think. I'm going to show you the answers in just a couple minutes here. Zara. Remember, you put a comma at the end of it when you're writing. You don't have to worry about it here. But and for Zara, for number 4, when doing research. Nate, I like it. I like it.
Thank you.
I like especially for number 2 that you used after having read. That's good. And Zara, what you've put up there is actually, it's okay, but notice what Nate had. Oh, wait, am I reading the wrong number? Wait, Nate, where's yours, Nate? After having read. Uh-oh.
I'm visiting
After having visited, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. Because it was grammatically perfect, but all of a sudden that was the wrong verb, so that's okay.
Yeah.
And what Zara had, I actually like too for number 2, but it's a little bit different in meaning than what the one I've posted up there is, because it's had. I'm gonna pop up these answers. Does anyone want to put up number 5? What?
I thought number 2, I would. So I said, can I say I wouldn't? Then
No,
I just take it out.
Yeah, because it's not would, it's had. And that's one of the other confusing things, that apostrophe D can be either would
Yeah.
or have. Grammatically, it couldn't have would visited, because would
Yeah.
always has to be followed by the plain verb.
Mhm.
But it's a little confusing, especially when you have verbs that are irregular. Okay, compare what you have to what I've put up on our screen. I hope and see what you think. And notice that I put commas after each one, because in this case, you really do want to use a comma to show, you tell your reader, okay, this is the purpose. I've stopped with my purpose, and now I'm going to tell you what the action is. So without the comma, it's really difficult to read. Anybody have any questions about that? You feel good? You feel so good you want to go on and do the next little group of them? At the bottom of the page. I'm going to move on. Are you ready?
Yes.
There it is. So we have 6, 7, 8, and 9. Take a minute and try and complete those. And then feel free to, if you're feeling confident, post one of those answers up in the chat.
You know, I use it correctly, but I still feel like it's a fragment.
What's a fragment? The whole sentence or just that part?
No, when I say after doing, for example, I think I have to say after she is doing or something like this.
Yeah, and that's why we were looking at this structure, because it's strange compared to sort of the basic things that we learn. This is sort of a more complex component of academic grammar. And you have to have the other part of the sentence. You can never have a sentence that just says, after visiting the site, period. That's a fragment. But you can say it as long as the subject is the same subject. You can use it. It's a more complex sentence, because I want you guys writing complex sentences to show complex ideas. I've got a feeling that, my feeling is that Minjing is going to be writing something in this chat room for either 6, 7, 8, or 9. I know you can do it. And so is Anne. Wow. And Bradley. And notice that number 6 and number 9 both are using the present perfect, but number 9 is just the simple present. Well, they're both the present perfect. Yeah. The other thing is, if this adverb clause or phrase rather of purpose is at the end of the sentence, you don't need the comma. Oh, and that's wonderful. Although notice, Anne, that it's the present perfect. What you've done now, what you have there is okay, but if you want to show that present perfectness, there's one thing you want to modify. Instead of saying after reading, to use this structure in the perfect, we need the verb have in the ing form and then the simple verb. After collecting all the information, comma. Yes, yes. Thank you, Nate and Minjing. Nice. Anne has put up one that's good for number 6. Can anyone put up something for number 6 that is a different option for that? And Anne, what you have there is okay. It's okay, but it has a slightly different meaning than the original. After reading an interesting article. Oh, Marianne, nice. You're moving, you're modifying that other part of it. That's nice. But we also want to think about the verb form, because you notice it's after you have read an article. There it is, Zara, yes. After having read. Now notice, however, this is the same as the one Zara did in the first part. Either one of those is really okay. It's not that it shifts the meaning so much that it makes it unclear. But you are making, in a sense, you're creating more of a distance between the reading and the searching when you use after having read an article. So, but they're both okay. Oh, let's see, be extra critical. Be extra critical when visiting websites that try to sell merchandise. Boom, thank you, Christelle. And notice the meaning is the same as long as you realize that the subject of be extra critical is you, and then the visiting websites is also you.
So, based on what Christelle said,
yeah.
Can I say at the end that try to sell you product?
Oh yeah, you can keep it. The rest of it you could keep the same. The extra critical when visiting websites that try to sell you products. That's fine. Yeah. I didn't notice Christelle did a little extra editing, and there's nothing wrong with that. And also Minjing has put up a great one for number 9. After having been diagnosed, comma. Perfect. If something doesn't feel right, you should tell your doctor. Yeah. And it's an interesting, so these are actually all about different, here, let me pop up the, oops, let me see if I can. There they are. So these should be, yeah. So those are the answers. You can check what you have. And Zara makes a good point. This does seem to go kind of against what we think about in sort of traditional terms of subject verb. But this is really a very effective way for you to add extra information. And it can be whether about something before or after or while. Okay, I'm gonna move to the next thing, I think, if I can make it work. Yeah. This is actually on the very next page. I really like this little thing. And this is where you've got these 2 sentences and I want you to combine them. We're only gonna do numbers 2, 3, and 4. But look at number 1, which is some people discover they have a serious illness. That's the first action. Some people find help through online support groups. That's the second action. So it could be either just a sequence or a cause and effect. You know, it all depends. So we have two different ways we look at these things. There's an action that happens first, followed by a second action. Or you can have actions that happen at the same time. They are simultaneous. So for that first one, you could write, after discovering they have an illness, some people find help through online support groups. I want you to take a minute, and this is on page 176 in your book, and just write down the sentences combining the two ideas for 2, 3, and 4. And remember, we can use words like while, when, before, after. So see what you can come up with. That's nice, Sarah. There's also another word you can use instead of when. And if anybody wants to post one of these answers, you are more than welcome to in the chat room. Doris, yeah, while is also a good word. And that really sort of cements the simultaneous component of it, that it's happening at the same time. When also works, but while really is stronger. Mariam, that's perfect. The only thing is, remember, because you're using the when clause at the beginning, after the word illness, you should have a comma.
Okay.
When people talk with others about their illness, comma, they don't feel so alone. After talking about others with others about their illness, comma, people don't feel so alone. And that is also perfect. And notice that the when that Mariam has used is not as completely clear. When can be used kind of as a before, after, or a while. So if you want to be very specific, you say, you must do this. If you do this first, then the second thing happens. You would use before or after. If you want to say definitively they're at the same time, you would use while. When is kind of ambiguous, which is not the end of the world, but it's something good for you to know as a writer. While going through treatment. Yeah. Good. That's nice, Nate. before choosing a group to join. Nice. People should read. Nice, Minjin. People talk with others about their illness so that, well, if you're going to use the so that, Zara, so that they don't feel so alone. The so that you can't just use with the ing. Or choosing a group to join, comma, people should da da da. Okay. Or they can, people should read the messages before choosing a group to join. So really this, Zara, I like that you're thinking about the other ones too, but these really would be with when, while, before, and after. And I'm going to put up my little answers and you can, these are not the only answers because as you guys were already showing, you can decide which one do you want to put at the beginning, which do you want to put at the end, which is going to be the main clause versus the dependent clause or the when or while, before or after clause. Typically, the stronger part of it is going to be the main clause. So for example, in number 4 about reading the messages and joining a group, yeah, you have to use before on that. Before choosing a group to join, you should do that. Yeah, that's good. Okay. I didn't do the other ones on here while monitoring members' messages. Minjing, the while thing, because that really means that it's happening at the same time, I don't think that one would really work because then there's that action of choosing to join and it comes later. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, there's more of this that you can do in your book, but we're not going to look at those now. Any questions so far?
No.
And remember, as you work on your final drafts this week, feel free to use any of these structures. Okay. I also want to talk about a little more, this is something I really like in this chapter, the vocabulary for problems and solutions. And these are phrases, and you know, I talked to you guys about plagiarism, but these things that are in green here, these are phrases that everybody uses, and you don't, there's nothing wrong with using those exact phrases. It's kind of like part of the language that you should have. So things like the most important problem is, there are several ways to address the problem of, one solution for something would be to do something else. Those structures are great. You don't have to change them. You don't have to make it complicated. So when you want to talk about introducing a problem, you could say the key problem, the main problem, the primary problem, the most important problem is. And then you can, for the secondary part, it's a secondary issue or a secondary problem. If there's only 2, you'd say the secondary issue or problem is. And then here's a nice structure is why, and I'm going to use this, the actual example. While wasted time and patient stress are factors, so those are important, the most urgent issue is misinformation on the internet. So notice that's another structure that's really good to use. And you can use it for anything. You know, if you're going to talk about malaria, you use that same structure. While A and B are factors, comma, the most urgent issue is C, whatever it is. And those are great structures to use. You don't have to reinvent those things. And then when you want to talk about the solutions, here are some nice phrases. The solution to the problem lies in medical websites, doctors, and patients. There are several ways to address the problem of cyberchondria. One solution to cyberchondria would be to educate patients. The problem of cyberchondria can be solved by whatever. Educating patients is a possible solution to the problem of cyberchondria. All of this text that's in green, that's yours. You own that. You can use it. And you don't have to create new ways. It's taking your ideas, which are the topics that you've chosen, and you can use these structures to help organize it. And there's nothing wrong with that. And then when you're making, when you want to make recommendations for possible solutions, you can use lovely passive voice constructions like is needed. You can also use something is necessary. And you can say should be, maybe, might be, must be considered, depending on the strength of what you want to express as a writer. So now, I'm going to put you into some breakout rooms, and I'm going to ask you to rank these 3 problems that doctors have with patients. And part of the ranking, we're going to talk about that a little bit later. It's important for you as a writer to make sure that you identify how you are ordering ideas. Like, for example, I've asked you to write things where you have 2 ideas or 3 ideas. Well, which one comes first? Which one comes second? Which one comes third? You have to have a reason why you're doing that. You can't just be, well, I'll just close my eyes and pick one, okay? So I want you to take a look at these 3 problems. Some patients believe in accurate information. Some people don't follow advice. Some patients don't follow advice. Some patients are unwilling to admit the seriousness of their health issues. Sounds like what Christelle was talking about earlier. And then I want you to talk about, put them in order and come up with just a solution for each. So I'm going to put you into a breakout room. Now, I hope during this breakout room, you're able to still see my screen. I think you can, right? Let's see what I can do. Hi, Miriam.
Hello.
Now, well, you've got something you're going to write for me, right? Ooh.
It will take a while, me and Minchin and Memonaveve talk it to understand what we're supposed to do.
Well, if you don't have it ready, that's okay. Don't worry. Really, what I wanted, you know, like what you see, what I have up here on the screen. In my opinion, the primary issue with patients is that they don't follow their doctor's advice. I think that one solution to the problem might be for doctors. That's all I wanted, was just one paragraph about one solution. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, there it is.
I can read it for you if you want.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, can you read it? That sounds good.
In my opinion, the primary issue with patient is that some patients are unwilling to admit the seriousness of their health issue. I think one solution to the problem might be to trust the doctor and listen to them.
To what, the doctor?
To listen to the doctor, to trust the doctor and listen to them.
Okay, good. I thought you said to stress the doctor, and I was like, don't do that. Be nice.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Okay, to trust the doctor. And I'm sorry, keep going. What was the rest of it?
And listen to them. The secondary issue with patient is that some patients don't follow advices. So, and just that much we did.
Okay, and that's fine. Remember, advice is uncountable, so there's no S on it.
Oh, advice. Yeah, I'm always doing SSS.
Oh, but that's very nice. Nice. Thank you, Miriam. I think we have something here from Anne, I see, up in the chat room. In our opinion, the primary issue with patients is that some of, Anne.
Yes.
Anne, where are you? Where are you?
I'm here.
Could you read that for me? I'm old. My eyes are too tired. What does it say?
In our opinion, the primary issue with patients is that some of them don't follow advice. We think that one solution to the problem might be trusting doctors' diagnoses and following doctors' advice, such as taking the medicine on time. That is the better way to feel better as soon as possible.
Nice. I really like that a lot. One thing I just want to mention is and I've noticed this in actually some of the writing. So this is, I'm glad you are using the possessive. Notice when you say, we think that one solution to the problem might be trusting doctor's diagnosis and following doctor's advice. As a writer, you have to make a decision. Am I talking about the plural, like all doctors, or am I going to say one doctor? So if you want to say all doctors, then it would be trusting doctors with the apostrophe after the S. So doctors, apostrophe S, all doctors' advice, and following, and again, instead of repeating doctor's advice, you could say their advice maybe, or you could use the same possessive for the plural, or you could, might be trusting, you could use the phrase one's doctor and make it singular. So you could say one's doctor's advice. Or let's not use one's, let's say the doctor's advice, and just make it one, and following that doctor's advice, such as taking the medicine on time.
Oh yeah, because it seems weird to write doctors with the S apostrophe and S, you know?
Yeah, well, you don't have to make it, you don't add the S apostrophe S. It would just be S apostrophe, and that means it's plural.
Okay. Oh.
So here, let me tell you, I respect my students' time. All students. I respect my students' time. So you see here, when you put the apostrophe after the S, you're saying it's the plural. So all students. When you put it after just when you have it between the word and the S, then it's the singular. What gets tricky is if you have something, just a regular word that ends in S. Like my son's name is Chris. So you have Chris's something. And if you have a plural, like my class, wow, yeah. Yeah, well, that's interesting. Okay. The other thing is, Anne, I really like what you did. One thing I might say, when you say that is the better way to feel better, maybe if you want to make it, instead of saying the better way, you can say the best way.
Yeah.
In part because that way, the better way is kind of saying there's one way, there's a good way and a bad way. And maybe, and you haven't really mentioned that it's a binary thing. And also you're repeating the word better. So it might be, you could say that is one excellent way to feel better as soon as possible, or you can say that is the best way, you know?
Okay.
But that's really nice writing. And I think I see something from Nate. Nathan, in my opinion, the priority issue with patients is remember, Nathan, you want to use the that phrase. So is that they don't follow up on doctor's advice and don't trust them. One solution to the problem might be
yes, I understand.
that they should trust the doctors and follow up on their advice. And remember, I don't know if you were here when I was mentioning, advice is non-countable, so you don't have an S on it.
That's my mistake.
That's okay. Chatting is also, we don't have any, there's no way to, to edit on a chat room. So that's still, don't worry. The priority issue, that's an interesting phrase, the priority issue. It's okay. To me, it seems a little bit informal, but I think it's still okay. Certainly the word primary that we use is good, but priority is okay.
I wanted to change that one.
I noticed. I thought that's what it was. You wanted to change it. Is everybody back here? Do we have everybody? Bradley's here. Doris is here. Zara. Amenuveve. Jew.
Excuse me? I have one question. If we put like doctors for Pruler and do not put the apostrophe and just like make it Pruler with S and doesn't make it like put the apostrophe, then what?
Well, if you do that, then it's a noun. It's not acting as a possessive. So for example, you can say, doctors are wonderful, right?
Yeah.
So it's just a noun. But if you want to describe something as being from the doctor, you have to have that the doctor's advice was good. Many doctors. So when you say the doctor's apostrophe S advice, notice advice is the noun there, and doctors starts acting like an adjective, but it's called the possessive. So you can't do it without the apostrophe.
Hmm.
And if it's just one doctor, you do it apostrophe S. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's just a grammatical rule.
Hmm.
That's how you identify the possessive.
Okay.
Do we have, I think we had somebody else. Anne gave us something wonderful. Doris, I think, is putting something up there, right, Doris? And Jew?
I'm typing something.
And Maya Mean. And while they're typing those up, I do want to mention to you all that Nate was saying he wanted to be a little more creative with the priority instead of primary. And that's okay. But what I would recommend to you, Nathan, as well as everybody, these kinds of structures don't really require creativity, because this is not the, writing that this is the most important idea. That's not really where you're showing your professor or your reader your ability to think creatively or to think effectively. There's another word, but I can't think it because I'm old. Okay, so so these kinds of structures, like the ones that I've given you here that are in the gray box, those things, you can use them just the way they are and really focus on the ideas, the content that you're looking at. So really the question is, first of all, you've got to figure out what is the problem and what is the solution. These other things are kind of like the glue that are going to just hold your ideas together. And what's more important is for you to think about the ideas and how do you express those well. And these things, you can kind of use these, we even call them fixed phrases. So then, and there's nothing wrong with making something creative. It just might be that you want to be careful that it's not going to be something that will sort of block your communication instead of improve the communication.
So the reason I was not using these things, I thought, okay, if I'm reading something and I have to paraphrase it, and then I have to come with something else, and then I was confused. Like I thought this is paraphrasing. I didn't know these are the structure of grammatically that I have to take this one. This is not the idea.
And Miriam, you're absolutely right for the content of what you're doing. And let me just jump back here. That's why I'm saying, notice here, on this page that I've got here, everything that's in green, those, you don't have to worry about paraphrasing that. As a matter of fact, you actually want to use those kinds of structures. Yeah. Because those are what people anticipate. That's not stealing ideas or plagiarism or anything like that. Because you're not taking the idea of a researcher, you're just sort of, this is the way you organize your ideas.
Yes.
And to be honest, if you're able to use these structures, and notice, remember, if you look here under 4.1, you can say the key problem, the main problem. So you have options, but you want to try and stay with those options, because when you present something that's not with what people are expecting in the organization, then they think you're doing that for a specific reason. And if really what you're trying to do is this, it's kind of like, this is my bullet point. I'm not really worried about the bullet point. I want to tell you what's in my idea here. And that's what these things are. So throughout the book, anything that's in green like that, these are those kinds of fixed phrases that I recommend that you use just the way they are. And that's not plagiarism. And I'm really glad you brought up that point, because it's a little contradictory, you know, because I tell you, don't copy anything, right? But these phrases, you actually should, and notice they're short, they're like 4 or 5 words. You don't copy a whole paragraph, but these phrases of 4 or 5 words are wonderful to use. Does that make sense?
Of course.
Oh, good. Oh. And I think we may have something else here. Doris has posted something. Doris, could you read that for us? Because, you know, my type is so small, I can't see anything. Doris? Uh-oh. Maybe I've lost Doris. Doris? How about you, Q? Can you read yours, Q?
Yes, in my opinion, the primary issue with patients is that some of them believe in accurate information. One solution to the problem might be choose a more authoritative website. It will available for the patients to get the useful information.
I love it. I love it. That's wonderful. Thank you. That's so nice. It's using all of those kind of fixed phrases, but then you're putting in your information in there in the non-fixed phrases. That's really nice. And what's great is then for you as a writer, you don't have to worry about those the fixed phrases. You just worry about what's going on for your content. So has Maya Mean put anything up here yet? Where's that Maya Mean? We got Marion, so it was great.
No, I didn't put it anything.
Oh, mercy me. Well, that's okay. Well, don't worry about that. Let me take a look at Doris's. Doris, are you there, back? Are you back? You know, she's got kids, so you never know. I just want to take a look. She says, in my opinion, the problem of some patients believe in accurate information can be solved by creating educational programs directed by medical experts. Nice. That's all one sentence. You could add another sentence, but that sentence is good. The one thing I want to point out, I don't know if Doris can hear me, but in my opinion, the problem that some patients believe in accurate information. So that's the problem. And then can be solved, and you put a D at the end because that's passive voice, my favorite, as you know. By, and here, because you're using the by, you're going to use the ing, by creating educational programs directed by medical experts. And that's a wonderful, wonderful content there. Okay. Now, I'm going to move, I'm actually going to jump over here. I want to talk to you guys about something we call narrowing down a topic. So when I ask you to write an essay, you probably have lots of ideas that you could include, but part of what I will ask you and other people will ask you is that they're going to give you some limitations on what you need to do. So you need to narrow down ideas to the most important ones. And that's showing your critical thinking skills. That's what I was thinking of earlier, critical thinking skills. To the things that you want to emphasize to your reader, whether it's a professor or anybody else. So here are the steps that I think are really useful. The first is you brainstorm ideas, where you make a list of ideas, and in brainstorming, everything goes. It's all good. You can come up with crazy ideas. Then you narrow down the ideas, and then you prioritize. And that's what you did actually just now. You identified what were the most important to the least important. So here's a question I have for you. What are some factors at home that affect children's health? Any ideas?
What's the question?
The food?
Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, at the bottom, what are some factors at home that affect children's health?
The food?
Telephones, right? What else?
Chocolate.
Chocolate?
Junk food. Eating junk
What was it?
The food.
Yeah,
Games.
food, nutrition, food. Anything else?
Games.
Games. What kind of games, Nathan?
PlayStation, like kind of play.
Videos game?
PlayStation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else?
Having a sedentary habit.
What kind of habits? I'm sorry, Amenuveve?
Sedentary habit.
Sedentary habits. So if someone's just sitting there, and to be honest, I should have stopped us all at 10 o'clock and made everyone stand up for a minute. I apologize. I'll try and do that next time. We're all going to have to stand up, open a window, yell out the window, then come and sit down again. Because our class is too sedentary. Or maybe I'm going to have everyone, you got to pick up your computer and run around the room with it. Actually, as you can see, I'm running around Georgia State University. I'm outside. I'm reporting live from Georgia State. Okay, any other ideas about children's factors that affect children's health?
Smoking, right?
What was that, smoking?
When parents, when they smoke at home.
Yeah, if parents smoke at home, if they're smoking at home. So, and I'm glad you brought up the topic of parents. Any other ideas about parents
Family
that might affect children's health? Minjing?
family harmony. I think it will confuse the children's mental health.
Nice, family harmony and children's mental health. Beautiful, that's a great idea. Okay, guys, I want to show you a little list here. This is a list that I came up with when we talk about children's health. And actually, I look at this and I think, Minjing, I'm glad you brought up the whole idea of mental health. And I don't feel I really addressed that here. So that actually would be something better to include. But here are my ideas. Parents' knowledge about nutrition. Do parents know about nutrition? What do parents actually eat? For example, you may know a lot about nutrition and yet you're always eating potato chips. Do parents encourage physical or outdoor activity? And sometimes parents will require outdoor activity. The kind of food that's available at home. You know, it's interesting. My wife does work right now during the pandemic, helping to get food to families that need food. And it's through the Atlanta Food Bank. And sometimes they have great healthy food, but sometimes they have junk food that they're providing. So it's an interesting thing that, the food that's available at home really makes a difference. Do the parents exercise? And how do they eat? And do the parents control TV hours or video games, like Nathan was mentioning about video games? So this was my original list. But I knew that I was going to have to write an essay that was identifying the 3 most important issues. So for me as a writer, I decided these 3 were the things I wanted to focus on. Do parents encourage physical or outdoor activity? What kind of food's available? And then the parents' control of TV hours or video games. So I got rid of the other ones and I took my list. And then the last thing I did was I had to think about it and I had to prioritize the list. Because remember I mentioned earlier, you can't just throw up, here's a paragraph about one idea, a paragraph about another idea, and a paragraph about the third idea. I don't care what order they're in. You want to have some reason as to why you are putting them in that order. Why do I have kinds of foods available at home first? And why do I have then parents control of TV hours and then encouraging physical outdoor activity? Now for me, I actually thought that the most important thing would be how much encouragement do children have to be outside. So, and I wanted to put that at the end. You, as a writer, can choose your own reasons why you want to put things in the order that you do. I like to start with the least important and build to the most important. Some people like to put the most important one first, maybe because they're afraid people will stop reading after the first paragraph. and they want to make sure they get it. So, so here's, I'm not going to put you into a breakout room here. I was going to, but I'm actually just going to have you think about this. I know you've all written, and by the way, I loved your rough drafts. I hope everyone has been able to see the comments and the audio. I recorded audio so that you could hear me, because I knew over the weekend you all missed me very much. So you wanted to hear my voice as I talked about grammar. So I hope you listened. So if you go to the Turnitin document, there's the feedback, and there's also a little audio. And I also attached the rubric so you could see your grade. But what I want you to think about is, for the topics that you chose, whether it was causes or solutions, first, what were they? And then I was wondering, you could think, is there something else I could have chosen, but I didn't? And then how do you order them? Which one is first, which one is second, and which one is third? And why? Why do you have it in that order? Because you don't want to just say, well, I closed my eyes and pointed, and that one goes first. You want to try to think of a reason why you put things either in this order or reversed. So I want you to think about that.
Oh, which topics do you mean?
I'm sorry, what?
Which topics do you mean?
I'm talking about the essay that's due at the end of this week.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. So anyway, so the final draft of your essay, and that's what I'm talking about, those topics. Review the comments. There's audio and text on your rough draft. By the way, I love the rough drafts. You guys are some good writers. So this was really a pleasure for me. Everyone in my family was concerned because I was smiling so much. But I said, well, when you read good writing, life is good. And you need to submit your final draft. Because let me say, writing is good, but it's going to be better by the end of this week. So you must submit your final draft in iCollege in the assignment.
Excuse me, teacher.
Yes,
I have a question. The final draft, at least the same topic, or we have to change another topic?
No, it's the same one. What you have to do is look at what I did for you, look at the comments I made for you on your rough draft and make all the changes as best you can. For example, some people may have forgotten about the background paragraph. So put in your background paragraph. Some people may have had a really good first body paragraph, a really good second body paragraph, and then a really small third paragraph. Expand that paragraph a little bit. Some people may not have done much in their conclusion. You can improve that conclusion. You may have missed putting in your citations, or you may have some grammatical or vocabulary issues. So on everyone's document, there's information from me to you. If it's not clear, let me know, and you can come to my office hours, or we can talk about it by email, anything that you want, okay? But you don't change the topic. Keep that same topic, but make it better. Because this is about the process of writing. Writing is not something you just do it once and it's done. Good writing it requires, well, the things we were talking about just now. You brainstorm, you think about the ideas, you order the ideas, you do your research, and you draft it, you write something, and then you rewrite it. And really good writers rewrite it again and again, because you want to make it so that no one is thinking about your language. They're only thinking about your ideas. And that's my goal for you. So your final draft is due on Sunday. The homework that I have for you before Thursday's class, if you can do it, is to complete the exercises in Unit 15. The good news is we've already done some of them. They're already done. Remember, you have an answer key, so you can check with that, and you can bring any questions you have about Unit 15. There's the quiz, and then for Sunday night, the quiz on Unit 15, posting in the discussion board for this unit, reviewing it once again your exercises, and then submitting your final draft. Okay?
I
Sound
have a
good?
question.
Yes?
Do we have, I forgot, do we have to talk about the solution of the problem? Because I made a mistake in this point. I talked about both of them.
Well, remember, you mean in your essay?
Yeah.
In your essay, the main focus of the essay is supposed to be causes or solutions. So you have a problem and you can tell me, for example, with childhood obesity, why is there so much childhood obesity? And then you can give me the 3 main causes according to your research. Or you can say, there is a lot of childhood obesity. There is a lot of childhood obesity. We know that. How do we solve this problem? And that's
So you mean you don't want me to talk about what it caused? You want me to talk about what makes this happen?
yeah, the things that caused it, or the solutions for it. Now check the notes in that I wrote to you, because just check and see what I wrote to you, because it may be that you can still keep what you have and just work on that, because you did some really good work. I'm trying to remember exactly, but there was a lot of work in that. Okay?
Okay.
But and follow up with me privately and we can talk about it, okay?
Okay.
Well, good. Anything else, guys?
No.
One question.
Yes.
When we are writing about a topic, how we should write it? Like, I always have a problem when I'm saying we, and then I have to use our, us, and then if I say people should take care of this thing, then I have to use their and them. And I don't know, when I'm writing, what way is a good way? When I'm talking, sometime when I'm writing my essay general, like how I should, I don't know how to say it, but should I, like, I don't know with whom I want to say this, like.
Well, that's actually a great question, because part of it is, and you'll see a lot of this, especially in less formal writing, where the writer will actually be writing to somebody and say, you should do this.
Yes.
You know, typically in academic writing, you want to avoid too much of that informal aspect. But I have to tell you, it really depends too on your field. So for example, Doris, you're going into education, I think, right? So for Doris, the more personal approach is probably good in education. In a lot of education, they actually prefer to have it more personal. But if you're going into law or something like that, it may be less personal, or chemistry. You know, it's not like, your research assistant, as a research assistant, you should do this. They really don't want to do that. And that's where you need to have things like the passive voice. You can also use the phrase one must do this or something. But I agree with you. You have to be careful about the we and our, unless you're going to do, which we will do in just a couple weeks here. We're going to be looking at persuasive essays. And in that case, you do actually want to make a connection between you and the reader. And sometimes you do want to say, our most important responsibility right now is social distancing, something like that. And then you're saying, we as a collective group.
Yeah.
So Mariam, it's always an issue. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions or thoughts?
No.
You know, there's 4 more glorious minutes so that I could talk about grammar.
Yeah. A lot of question about grammar. You can talk without asking.
Well, I am going to let you all go now. And you have 4 glorious free minutes. Enjoy those 4 minutes. They're wonderful. And if you have any questions, please feel free to email me, set up an appointment, and we can do a Zoom, okay?
Yeah.
You did great work today. Thank you for the writing that you all did.
Thank you.
See you on Thursday.
Can I share something
Please,
quickly?
Yes,
please,
please.
Dr. Bunting.
I don't want to make sad anybody, but I was just feeling so heartbroken because I heard about my very dear classmate in Afghanistan that he died in a bomb blast last day. And it was so tough. Like it was like my brain just stopped working. And he was such a great man. He was just married to have 2 kids. And he was very bright student in agriculture department faculty. And he's a young man and like nothing. And I was just trying to force myself to think and to be able to write my essay. I can't. And I was, because I'm home and I'm far from my family also, I just wanted to share with you guys. Maybe it will make me a little bit happy. You are my classmate now, and I like all of you.
Sorry for that.
Yeah.
So sorry for that.
For your
Oh,
loss.
Mariam, accept our sympathy.
Thank you. And I'm sorry if I hope I didn't ruin your day.
No,
But
you don't have to be sorry.
Absolutely.
Don't be sorry.
You don't have to be sorry.
But we spent 4 years together, and we have very beautiful memories from Kabul University. And most of the time, it's so hard for us, like as a girl and boy, to be friends. But he was such a gentleman and help other girls to save in the environment and help us to the supply that professor gave us. And just to lose him, like he was just go to the mosque for praying, and it doesn't make sense to me. Like they bomb blast inside the mosque for what? I don't know. Like it's so heartbreaking.
I'm so sorry, Mary.
It's okay. I just want to share with somebody, and I thought, okay, let's share it with you guys.
Yeah, you did well.
Understand.
I'm sorry, and thank you so much for listening to me. Thank you.
Don't be sorry. Don't be sorry.
You do well by sharing. Like if you share something, you are like 50% relieved.
It's really feel good. Like, but I don't
Well,
know.
in this tough time too, you know, we need to make sure we make connections, because it's very easy to feel alone, and we're not alone. But it's hard, you know, and I mean, for everybody here, for all of us, this is hard, and for you having to deal with that, I mean, it's heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking so much. And I lost my grandfather last week. I lost my uncle also.
Oh my God.
Oh no.
It's so much, and I'm just trying to be so strong, and sometimes you can't. Like I'm trying my best. So especially this young boy, my classmate, make me so sad. So my grandfather he was almost 95 years old, and he had a beautiful life, and he was so fortunate. And it is the way of life. We are coming one day, we are going. But when I lost my classmate, he was so young, a gentleman. I'm sorry, what I'm talking, my brain doesn't work. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Well, it's always okay.
Thank you. Thank you for understanding me. Thank you so much.
Okay.
I love you guys.
Yes, and Mariam, I want to add something. Sometimes if you want to cry, you can cry. It helps too.
Nothing is coming. Something happened. I don't cry. I feel so ashamed sometimes why I don't cry. I feel I don't have crying. And I don't know why.
Maybe it will come after in the process.
I'm waiting for it because I think crying is good, but crying is not coming. Yeah, it's
well, it just it does or it doesn't, and you don't have to. I don't feel bad about it, you know. But it's because we also have to, you know, figure out how do we get through the day, and how do we deal with the things that, you know, that you're also working with, like my homework and all that.
Yes, I'm very lucky. I'm so fortunate that I have you guys. I like your homeworks. Keep you busy. Yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Well, we all send our prayers,
Thank you.
our positive energy as much as we can.
Thank you
Yes,
so much.
absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
You too.
Yeah, all of you, okay? And thank you, Mariam, because none of us. There's a phrase: no man is sexist, but no person is an island.
Mhm.
We have to lean on each other sometimes, and that's part of what it is to be a human being.
Thank you. Thank you very
I
much.
realize I really look forward to Tuesdays and Thursdays at 9 o'clock in the morning, because I get to see all of you. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's for me too.
Well, be good, everyone. Be safe.
Please, Dr. Bunsen, can I stay a while?
Sure. Yeah, no problem.
Have a wonderful day. Bye, guys.
Bye, Mariam.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thinking of you. Bye.